I signed a contract with a realtor in May, and he put me and my family in danger, and he listed the property when I asked him not to.
We'll figure out the best solution for you. And just so you're aware, sometimes the best solution is not necessarily a transaction with us. Sometimes there's alternative solutions that we can come up with. So we'll try to assess the whole situation and figure out what the best path forward is.
Hey, Chris, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
And then you there?
Yeah, I am.
Thanks to you guys for joining. My name is Abbas, Abbas. I'm friends with Kenzie. Kenzie and I do a lot of business together here in the Atlanta market. And Kenzie brought this situation to me, and I have a friend who works on these types of deals. So I pulled him in. His name is Chris in San Diego, but he buys creative deals nationwide, and I'll let him explain to you what that means.
Thank you so much, Abbas. How you doing today?
Okay, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
That's good.
Glad we're able to get on the call today, and I understand that, you're facing, some challenges with the situation currently. And so, we deal with a lot of different types of transactions in real estate that are unorthodox, so to speak. So, these types of scenarios that come up, we have a lot of experience helping homeowners and sellers in these situations so that they can move on without having, a lot of baggage kind of holding them back. Abbas told me a little bit about the situation, but maybe kind of catch me up to where you're at, with the situation. I guess, there's a little bit of a arrears and, so some payments were not getting made. And so just trying to figure out next steps. And so, yeah, just catch me up to speed.
So the loan has been in forbearance, and the forbearance ends June 30th. I am really trying to get something done. I signed a contract with a realtor in May, and he put me and my family in danger, and he listed the property when I asked him not to. There were a lot of very concerning issues. He violated his fiduciary duties. He overstepped professional ethical boundaries. And so it has pushed me into the situation that I do not want to be in. I told him to accept an offer on the house, and he decided not to of his own accord. Pretty bad.
Sorry to interrupt real quick. I did not know this. Kenzie took over this listing, and I didn't know all the background on it.
No worries. We'll just get caught up, and then, we'll figure out the best solution for you. And just so you're aware, sometimes the best solution is not necessarily a transaction with us. Sometimes there's alternative solutions that we can come up with. So we'll try to assess the whole situation and figure out what the best path forward is for you, or if there's multiple options as well. So that listing agreement, did that expire, or do you have a signed cancellation from that agent?
Well, what ended up happening was I went to the brokerage, and then they put Kenzie on it, and I've spoken with Kenzie regarding a possible cancellation and waiving of the protected period if necessary. I've gotten information about other investors, and then possibly a subject to situation arrangement. Essentially, when that agent did what he did and put me and my family in danger, I got a moving truck that day, and I vacated the premises of the property because it was no longer safe for me or my children to be there. That was a bit of an aggravating factor. I had hoped to not leave until the end of July and maybe have some time to get through process. It doesn't matter how any of that happened, but yeah. I do understand, the subject to, and I do understand various investments. I guess since he chose to list it, there were some questions about whether or not the initial investor that I had requested accepted, that I, said, hey, I want to set this up. I want to accept that offer. We're not sure what the deal is with that.
Was that a cash offer, or was that a creative offer?
It was a cash.
Okay. What were they offering you?
$147,800.
I don't want to get too personal, so forgive me, and feel free to tell me if I'm asking too much. With regards to the dangerous situation, was it just because people were showing up to the house, or was there a particular person that there's an issue with that was now showing up or something?
It is my ex-wife, and we have children together. She has a restraining order, and Child Protective Services is involved. They have removed the children from any type of unsupervised custody or visitation from her, and they're on the path of terminating her parental rights. Right now, when the children do visit, it is in a guarded facility with police and a supervisor, and she began making death threats, both verbally over text and publicly on social media, towards me, my family, and the children. And I had expressed that in very clear, detailed way with the prior agent, and he just ignored me. I'm very upset with him. I don't know if you can tell.
I can totally empathize with your situation,
And that kind of the situation that is with my ex-wife. She's, wasn't like that when we got married, wasn't like that when I got pregnant, but I filed for divorce, and because of drugs and violence, this is the pinnacle of it. So that happened. I immediately removed all of our stuff from the home. And I am in a time crunch because, the forbearance was ending. I was hoping to, be able to have some time to figure this out a little bit. I signed the initial contract. And so what are the options that you or your company? I'm very familiar with the subject to agreement.
Okay.
I know how it works. I know all of the details, and I know that Kinsey had stated that this was a possibility, and I just wanted to tell me, the terms.
So just out of curiosity, so your overall understanding, in its simplest forms, like what is your basic understanding of subject to, just so I can meet you where you're at and then see where we need to go from there?
So my understanding of subject to is that the mortgage may or may not stay in my name. Most likely the mortgage will stay in my name, but there will be a power of attorney transfer to the investor or the subject to company, at which point they will become liable to make to make the monthly mortgage payments. And since my forbearance ends in July and I am owing, I have it on my mortgage statement, but it's somewhere around $5,500, and the subject to will catch that up, and then will also give me payments up front. They will overtake the mortgage, liability of the property, repairs, and then after a specified amount of time indicated in the contract, at which point generally the mortgage is completely paid off. Then I sign the deed and everything over to the company. And that is it. That's my general understanding.
So the simple, basic way I always kind of have the conversation is essentially it's kind of like a 17-year-old who just gets his driver's license and has no credit but needs to buy a car, right? Usually what happens is the mom co-signs for the car, right? So the loan is in the mom's name, but the car is owned by the son, right? Or the child, right? So in this scenario, we come in, we purchase the property subject to the existing mortgage. And in that scenario, the title and the deed transfers over to us. So we now own the property, but the mortgage stays in the seller's name. And then we have a contractual obligation with the seller to make those payments on their behalf. So we now own the property. You don't own the property, you don't own the liability or the repairs or anything that's needed. Just simply your name is on the mortgage and we're making those payments. And so the benefit in this type of scenario, and it doesn't make sense for everybody. So there's a lot of situations where subject to is not the most beneficial option for a seller. But in a scenario where, they need to catch up arrears and they don't have that, we can come in and we do that. And then also the big benefit for a seller's credit in that scenario is it's now a performing note. And so every single month that we make those payments, it's showing up on your credit and it's actually helping to improve and reestablish someone's credit when it might not be in a great scenario, this can kind of help them resolve that credit scenario. Does that make sense?
Right. And my understanding is that since I am renting up, like since I'm moving and relocating and renting, that after a period of time, there will be a statement in which I can receive that indicates like my DTI in relation to the fact that, basically it doesn't count against my DTI if 2 years from now I wanted to purchase a property. Is that correct?
Yes, so that is correct with an asterisk, right? And I'm a huge fan of full disclosure, because a lot of times when people don't know certain things, it's like if you get prescribed a medicine and the doctor doesn't tell you it's going to make you throw up, and then you start throwing up, you think you're having an allergic reaction, right? Whereas if I just tell you up front, like, hey, here's what to expect, when it happens, it's a lot easier for you to handle it and manage that situation. It's not like a freak out session, right? So right. Yes, keep in mind, mortgage brokers and mortgage lenders, there's government standards is like the minimum standards and requirements for mortgage lenders, okay? That does not necessarily mean that all mortgage lenders have to only abide by those, right? Like that's the minimum standard. They can put extra requirements and restrictions on what they allow and what they don't allow. So I say all that to tell you that you could call one mortgage lender and have a conversation with him and him run your credit and see this on your credit and him say, no, we can't take that off. But you could call another one and they would be like, oh yeah, absolutely, we take that off all the time. So just know that if you call one person and they say, oh yeah, you can't do that, don't feel like that's the end of the road, right? You just have to talk to another mortgage lender and we can help you, to find a lender that, understands the guidelines, like the federal guidelines, and doesn't have as much strict underwriting. Okay.
Yeah, I understand that.
Cool. Yeah, I just I want that to be very clear, because, we've had people in the past like, wait, this guy said, well, yeah, just talk to another guy, so.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, so that is possible. And the way we typically do it, and, which we feel is the right way to do it, is we do everything through a third-party loan servicer. This is basically a neutral third party that when payments are getting made, because there's a couple things that are going to happen with this property, that may happen with this property. So when we purchase it, we might hold it as a long-term rental. We might hold it as a short-term rental. We might hold it as like a traveling nurse, like medium-term rental. We could even do like group housing. Like there's all different types of strategies and every house is different. So my team would have to fully underwrite the deal and see what makes the most sense for us for the exit strategy. But all that to say is whoever is paying us, right? Like I'm not going to live in it. I live in San Diego. I'm not moving there to live in it. But whoever is going to live in there and make payments to us, they're not actually making payments directly to me. They're making payments to, a third-party servicer, we'll just call it ABC Company, right? ABC Company will have instructions of that monthly payment, who all is supposed to be paid each month on this. And that, would be partly the mortgage, partly the taxes, partly the insurance. Some of it would come to us. And then if there's property management, they'll facilitate all of those payments. Okay. And then that way we'll have a record of all of those payments being made. So in the future, when you do go to, apply for a mortgage on a new property, we'll be able to show that and you'll have that record. So we'll be able to get you access to all of those things. So that's the way we structure.
Okay. And then, I completely understand, on board with that. Also, just so you know, the property is zoned for mixed use. It's business, commercial, and residential.
Okay.
Like I said, I was pushed into the situation by the agent before Kenzie. Kenzie has been absolutely wonderful and has been kind and understanding. I am in a time crunch. So I guess we just need to talk about numbers and how quickly we can do this.
Yeah. So I have what I believe is a copy of your most recent mortgage statement. So I see you've got a 3.75% interest rate. So yeah, basically in this type of situation, typically what we would do is we would come in with the money to clear up any of the arrears, the negative escrow balance, and anything like that. And in this scenario, just based on looking at the numbers, I mean, I think what we could do is we'd be able to come to the table with about 10K, and then the difference between whatever we have to pay for those arrears and to clear that up would go to you, and then we would pay closing costs and everything. Does that kind of like shock you at all, or is that kind of like what you expected, or?
That's what I expected. When I spoke with Kinsey, she did say the 10K number, and you are looking at the most recent mortgage statement. So as long as I am fully understanding that, it's the 10K minus that arrearage, and then I would be receiving a check for, what's that, around $4,000, $5,000, and some change.
Yeah, correct. And then of course, like any payments that are due between now and closing. And keep in mind when we schedule on these types of transactions, because it's not just a cash transaction, there's a lot of moving parts to make sure that this is done properly to protect you as the seller and make sure that, when you do go to buy a new home in the future, like everything was done properly so that nothing comes back to bite you later. So that's why we typically do a longer close of escrow. However, a lot of times we can close sooner. We just kind of need a little bit of a longer runway, so that if things come up along the way, we, we're not up against the wall. Typically what we do is there's a 60-day close of escrow. A lot of times we can close closer to 30 days and then a 30-day due diligence period while we're making sure, because we have to do all the lien searches and everything and just make sure that there's nothing like that comes up that you might not even be aware of, right? So that's basically the process. But a lot of times we can close sooner than that.
Realistically, how soon is soon on your timeline? If I were to say today, okay, go ahead.
If we get the go ahead today, I would get the paperwork. I'd have my transaction coordinator draft up all the paperwork. We'd send it over to you via DocuSign. You get that back to us. We'd open escrow. Let's see. So it's noon my time. So it's at 3:00 there. So I don't know that we'd be able to get it into an attorney's hand before the end of business today, but by early morning, and then start the process, and we start going through like the lien searches and everything. I'd say probably in the 30 to 45 day range, like would be realistic, possibly even sooner. So it all depends, again, every situation is different. I mean, I'll give you a quick story. We had a transaction where we were doing this same thing on like a $300,000 house. And when we went through all the title searches and the lien searches, there was like $1.5 million worth of liens attached to this $300,000 property. And, when you're taking over, yeah, exactly. Yeah. How do you rack up that? I have no freaking clue how that even happens.
People are crazy.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But needless to say, if we move forward with that transaction, now we're buying that liability, right? So that doesn't make sense. Now, not saying that that's the scenario here, but we just need to make sure we go through, cross all the T's, dot all the I's, and make sure that there's no baggage that's going to stick with us that we don't know about, and no baggage that's going to stick with you that, is going to cause problems for you later.
A little bit longer than I wanted, but I do have a question. Since my forbearance ends on June 30th, is there any type of way to coordinate this process with my mortgage company in which there's some type of communication or documentation to prevent any type of pre-foreclosure act?
Yeah. So what did they tell you as far as the forbearance? So let's say days go by and we hit June 30th. What are they telling you happens on June 30th?
They sent me information on how to apply for a loan modification, which I submitted. And then I also requested an extension to my forbearance. And I actually have not checked that in about the past 2 days because my son's sick today. I have not checked up on that. They have not indicated pre-foreclosure, but again, this is my first time that I've ever owned a house. I don't know how any of this works.
So assuming that we can move forward and we can take care of you, we can, square up the the 10K minus the arrears and everything, is there anything else that would be holding you up from wanting to move forward with this?
There's nothing else holding me up from wanting to move forward. I do want to let you know that in my haste to get out of the property because of the safety, there's some garbage bags and stuff on the property that need to be cleaned up, and I'm one person, so it's kind of difficult. So there may be a little bit of, a cleanup that would be necessary, and I don't know.
You don't have to worry about that. Personally, I would say absolutely do not worry about that because you don't want to put yourself at risk. We will take care of that. That's something that we handle all the time. We generally have to go in and do a little bit of cleanup. I'm guessing, right? I'm not going to assume, but it sounds like we're not talking about like a hoarder situation. So that type of scenario costs thousands of dollars for us to clean out, so that would change things. But if it's just like, hey, we just cleaned everything out and we just like took what we were going to keep and then the trash we left, like no big deal. That's not a problem at all. We'll take care of that. So don't even worry about that.
No, I think that's good. I'm just ready to move forward and do whatever is necessary. And if I can get help in communicating with my mortgage company so that we can make sure that everything is, but even just a directive of like, here's what you do. Like, I can do it. I just need to know what to say, how to say it.
Yeah, this is great. So essentially what we would do is I'll get the team working on the docs today. One of the docs that I'll make sure that they add to the agreements is basically an authorization to release information. And what'll happen is it's essentially giving us the ability to act on your behalf and speak with the mortgage company, because typically they're not going to provide information to somebody that's not on the mortgage. So we'll get that authorized. And then the only other thing is, as far as the mortgage company, like, are they aware that you're selling the property?
Yes. So I told them they knew that it was listed. And I told them, I actually called them probably about 2 weeks ago when all of this kind of craziness happened, and I basically had to pack up the entire house. I called them and I told them what was happening. And so they're aware of the situation. So they may be anticipating this type of, power of attorney exchange or DocuSign or whatever it is that you need.
So are you familiar with what's called the due on sale clause?
No.
The due on sale clause, it's a clause that is basically in any loan on a property. And what it states is that the lender can, not must, but can call the mortgage note due at sale. Meaning, right, if it sells, they have the option to say, you need to pay in full the remaining balance. It's the big, scary, black cloud that everybody talks about when it comes to subject to. However, in my experience and my partner's experience, over 5,000 transactions like this, there's been 5 times that note has been called due, and all 5 times they've resolved the issue. But it's like a dog that's sleeping, right? You let the dog sleep, you don't kick the dog. So moving forward, we want to not necessarily communicate to the lender that you're selling the property. The way we typically structure these transactions is we come in and all of the documentation essentially lists us as like a property manager that's now acting on your behalf and managing your assets. Okay?
Yeah, I understand that kind of I see what you're saying, and I understand that.
So I'll go ahead and I'll get the paperwork started. We'll get it sent over for you. And by the way, is there anybody else on title other than yourself?
The only person is me.
Okay, perfect. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get with my transaction coordinator. I'll have them draft up the documentation. What I will need from you is I will need a copy of your homeowner's insurance. And then do you have the most recent property tax bill?
I do.
Okay, perfect. All right, cool. So what I'll do is I'll get the team on drafting everything up and get this stuff over to you. Once we get, the signed docs back, then we can start the ball rolling and, working with the lender to figure out, what steps they're going to be taking with the forbearance, and we'll figure everything out. So we'll hold your hand the whole way through. You don't have to worry about anything. We'll make sure that everything gets taken care of for you.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
No worries. It's my pleasure. And yeah, I'm glad that you guys are safe and that, we're able to help the scenario out. So
Have a good day and stay safe.
awesome. Sounds good. We appreciate you. Hey, what's up, Abbas?
Hey, Chris, what's up, man?
All right, man. So, good stuff. So, questions, thoughts?
How long have you been doing this? And did you get introduced to creative via Pace, or were you doing this before?
Yeah, so I've been doing sales for over 25 years. I got into real estate in 2019. My business partner has been doing it since 2008, and we linked up. He's had experience doing Subject 2 long before Pace was even in the game. But my first experience with Subto and creative financing was joining Subto a little over a year ago. So we joined Subto first, and then I also became a mastermind student with Pace, and so gone through all the trainings and everything. And we've done a bunch of Subject 2 deals and wraps and seller finance and all that stuff. So,
and do y'all get your deals like on your own, or are a lot of people bringing you stuff? How's that working?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have multiple different methods of marketing. So we do market ourselves. We also have a YouTube channel where we put out content on what we're doing. And we also JV with other investors. So if people need help closing deals, we can help close their deals for them. If people need help dispoing deals, we can help dispo their deals for them. So we have a whole JV program built out and everything. And so that's why when you post in the creative finance page, usually Pace's team will tag me on deals that they know fits like the criteria of what we are good with working with. What we'll do is, as I'm getting them to write up the agreement here, we'll just write up like a separate agreement, as part of that'll get submitted to escrow with this. That'll basically take care of you guys on the $5K between you and the agent. Is there the one thing that could be a holdup is it sounds like there's still a listing agreement in place. Am I wrong about that?
I believe there is.
Okay, so what we need to do is we need to get a signed cancellation. Otherwise, the brokerage is like she's going to be obligated to pay the brokerage out of that $10,000, and obviously we don't want that because we're trying to help her out.
Okay. Even out of that 10,000, not out of the 5,000 that she and I were.
Basically, it's going to come out of whatever the total purchase price ends up being, which in this case, like I'd have to add it all up, but I just want to make, if we can get the cancellation, it's cleaner that way. If, otherwise there could be hoops to jump through that could kind of slow it down. So yeah, hopefully you got value out of like just hearing how I navigated that conversation, and maybe that helps you in other conversations in the future. But yeah, I'll get everything over to you guys and to her, and then we'll get this thing across the finish line.
Gotcha. And question. So,
Sure.
Are you saying ideally the listing agreement would be terminated? Is that how you want me to do it?
It's up to you. Whatever you think is going to be better with your brokerage and cleaner. Just in most of our transactions, when agents bring deals to us, they typically will cancel the listing agreement, and then we'll just have an agreement submitted with all the docs to escrow that the agent is getting. We'll essentially put it in as like a referral fee of like, in this case, it would be $2,500 to you, and then an assignment to a boss for $2,500.
Yeah, I might just have to talk to my broker about it.
Yeah, that's fine. Whatever your broker is.
Last I've just done it with the listing agreement because we always just get one when we first meet the client.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's fine. So maybe just an addendum, just stating that the terms are going to change to a flat fee of $2,500. That either way is fine with me. It doesn't matter.
All right, sounds good.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to doing this deal and getting some other deals done with you guys. I mean, we're doing some other stuff in the general Atlanta area. So, you know, anything you guys got that, you know, you're having trouble with, or, you know, you're just looking for another buyer, or, you know, anything, feel free to hit us up.
Perfect. I appreciate you so much.
No worries. Thank you. God bless. All right, guys. So that was an awesome call with not only the seller, but a wholesaler who brought us the deal and the agent who was representing the seller. Hopefully you guys got value out of that call. I think it went really, really well. You know, at the end of the day, it's like there's a lot of times there's situations that we don't know about, and we just need to kind of like ask the right questions and be actively listening. This is why it's really, really important to be actively listening, because if you're not, and you're focused too much on what the next thing you're going to say, or you're focused on, you know, underwriting while you're on the phone with them or doing something else, you can get distracted and you can miss something so little that when you ask a question about it, it opens up a big story that ultimately, you know, not only tells you the bigger picture, but also, you know, creates a connection with that person, you know, that's way deeper than the transaction. You know what I mean? So thanks for watching. Chris closes your deal here with Real Estate Investing Made Easy and Lazarus Property Group with another subject to transaction that most likely we are going to end up wrapping to an end buyer. Appreciate you guys watching. Stay tuned for the next one. Hit the like button and that notification bell. And if you're not subscribed, I don't know what you're waiting for. Coda thinks you should subscribe as well. Right, Coda? Yep, she does. So appreciate you guys. Peace. If you want to see the next video in this series, just click right here.